It's going to take 1 minute. Everybody should skip to a minute in if you're watching from before. I'm just going to check if I'm live on all my profiles. Trovo's Gucci. How's YouTube? Yeah, I think we got YouTube and Twitch. I forgot to open that tab. Yes.
That's really cool.
Oh God. Alright, we good. Just reposition this. Alright. I've decided to start using, as I should have before, archive.is. Oh, it's IS? I thought it was IO. So archive.is instead of using the actual sites. So these mainstream media organization get clicks. I'm just going to use this. It's better. So I've been meaning to read this for a while. The Times.com, I guess, came out with this 2 days ago. 5 days ago, my lord. February 4th, the secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. They are fully aware of what this means. Like, there's no subtlety at all here. The U.S. election was, as they say later on in the article, reinforced by a secret cabal that worked behind the scenes for the good of the people. Of course. Anyway, let's start reading into this. A weird thing happened right after November 3rd. Nothing. The nation was braced for chaos. Liberal groups had vowed to take to the streets, planning hundreds of protests across the country. Right-wing militias were girding for battle. In a poll before the election day, 75% of Americans voiced concern about violence. Oh, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hell. Instead, an eerie quiet descended. As President Trump refused to concede, the response was not mass action, but crickets. When media organizations called the race for Joe Biden on November 7th, jubilation broke out instead as people thronged cities across the U.S. to celebrate that democratic process that resulted in Trump's ouster. A second odd thing happened amid Trump's attempts to reverse results. Corporate America turned on him. Hundreds of major business leaders, many of whom had backed Trump's candidacy and supported his policies, called on him to concede. To the president, something felt amiss. It was all very, very strange, said Trump on December 2nd. Within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint the winner, even while many key states were still being counted. Now, that's what Trump said. And then the article says, in a way, Trump was right. They were banning people for this on YouTube. I think on Twitch as well. Facebook. What else? All the big ones. Probably Instagram. If you said that there was an orchestrated effort to anoint the winner while the election wasn't finished, you were labeled a conspiracy theorist and banned, or shadow banned at least. And now it's just okay, He was right, actually. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. An informal alliance. How quaint. The pact was formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the AFL-CIO published on Election Day. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain, inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive racial justice protests, in which the forces of labor came together with the force of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. So when all the businesses were being burned because because BLM was running through the streets, burning and looting businesses, many of whom did not live in the places that they were looting. When that was happening and all the businesses were supporting that was them. Where is it? keeping the peace and opposing Trump's assault on democracy. I was inspired by that. Inspired. My Lord. Like, what do they actually mean? There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes. That sounds so bad. One of them both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. So something behind the scenes stopped the protests. So had control over the protests. Okay. And coordinated resistance from CEOs. The handshake between business and labor was just one component of a vast cross-partisan campaign to protect the election. An extraordinary shadow effort dedicated to winning the vote. An extraordinary shadow effort dedicated not to winning the vote, but to ensuring it would be a free and fair, credible and uncorrupted election. Are you kidding me? How does one not implicitly mean the other? Like, why would you have an effort not to, like, I know they mean to win the vote, like not to win the vote, but to ensure this and this is this. No, it's to win the vote. Ensure a free, fair, credible, uncorrupted election. Why were observers not allowed to observe? Why were Republicans observers not allowed to observe after election day? Jesus. For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives scrambled to shore up America's institutions as they came under simultaneous attack from a remorseless pandemic and an autocratically inclined president. Though much of this activity took place on the left, it was separate from the Biden campaign and crossed ideological lines, with crucial contribution by nonpartisan and conservative actors. The scenario the shadow campaigners were desperate to stop was not a Trump victory. It was an election so calamitous that no result could be discerned at all. A failure of the central act of democratic self-governance that has been a hallmark of America since its founding. So they were working behind the scenes, rallying all these different groups, media, big bang, big business, in order not to stop a Trump victory, but to stop an election so calamitous that no result could be discerned. What did they think Trump was going to do? Like, cheat? Trump did not cheat. Oh, it's such self-projection. It's not, sorry, they're just admitting it. It's a brag right now. It was an election, so yeah. Their work touched every aspect of the election. Every aspect. They got states to change voting systems and laws and help secure hundreds of millions in public and private funding. They fended off voter suppression lawsuits. Wasn't that the lawsuit that was against them changing a law a week or two before the election, the Democrat? Anyway, recruited armies of poll workers. Okay, and got millions of people to vote by mail, which is less safe, less integrity for the first time, especially if it's their first time. They successfully pressured social media companies to take a harder line against disinformation and use data-driven strategies to fight viral smears, which means the opposite. They executed national public awareness campaigns that helped Americans understand how the vote count would unfold over days or weeks, preventing Trump's conspiracy theories and false claims of victory from getting more traction. Yes, they were doing suppression and shadow bans and bans. After Election Day, they monitored every pressure point to ensure that Trump could not overturn the result. The untold story of the election is the thousands of people of both parties who accomplish the triumph of American democracy at its very foundation, says Norm Eisen, a prominent lawyer and former Obama admin official who recruited Republicans and Democrats to the board of the Voter Protection Program. For Trump and his allies were running their own campaign to spoil the election. Oh, were they? The president spent months insisting that mail ballots were a Democratic plot and the election would be rigged. Was he now? his henchmen at the state. In a way, Trump was right. His henchmen at the state level sought to block their use. What? Their use. Insisting that mail ballots block the use of mail. Yes, mail ballots are less secure. While his lawyers brought dozens of spurious suits, they were dismissed spuriously, rather, to make it more difficult to vote, an intensification of the GOP's legacy of suppressive tactics. Before the election, Trump plotted to block a legitimate vote count, and he spent the months following November 3rd trying to steal the election he'd lost. Are you kidding me? Oh, wow. It's like they lost, and they tried to take it, and now they're just projecting onto him. It's like, who is it? Not Trotsky. Who's that guy that wrote Rules for Radicals? That guy. Same tactics. With lawsuits and conspiracy theories, pressure on state and local officials, and finally summoning his army of voters, see the language, to the January 6th rally that ended in deadly violence at the Capitol. The democracy campaigners watch with alarm. Every week, we felt like we were in a struggle to try to pull off this election without the country going through a real dangerous movement of unraveling. Says the former GOP representative Zach Wamp, a Trump supporter who helped coordinate a bipartisan election protection council. We can look back and say this thing went pretty well. Are you freaking kidding? But it was not at all clear in September and October that was going to be the case. This is the inside story of the conspiracy. All right. The architect. Sometimes in the fall of 2019, Mike Podhorzer became convinced the election was headed for disaster and determined to protect it. This was not his usual purview. For nearly a quarter century, he'd been a senior advisor to the president of the AFL-CIO, the nation's largest union federation. Has marshaled the latest tactics and data to help its favorite candidates win election. Unassuming and professional, he isn't the sort of hair-gelled political strategist who shows up on cable news. All right. Let's see. Okay, let's keep reading, I guess. Among Democratic insiders, he's known as the wizard behind some of the biggest advances in political tech in the recent decades. Group of liberal strategists he brought together in early 2000 led to the creation of the Analyst Institute. So he has creds. My basic take on politics is that it's all pretty obvious if you don't overthink it or swallow the prevailing framework. Okay, come on. What are your... There you go. He began circulating weekly number-crunching memos to a small circle of allies and hosting strategy sessions in D.C. But when he began to worry about the election itself, he didn't want to seem paranoid. It was only after months of research that he introduced his concept in his newsletter in October 2019. I wonder what his fear was. The unusual tools of data analytics and polling would not be sufficient in a situation where the president himself was trying to disrupt the election, he wrote. How? Most of our planning takes us through election day, he noted, but we are not prepared for the two most likely outcomes: Trump losing and refusing to concede, and Trump winning the Electoral College despite losing the popular vote by corrupting the voting process in key states. We desperately need to systematically red team this election so that we can anticipate and plan for the worst we know will be coming our way. It turned out he wasn't the only one thinking in these terms. He began to hear from others eager to join forces. The Fight Back Table, a coalition of resistance organizations, had begun scenario planning around the potential for a contested election, gathering liberal activists at a local and national level into what they called the Democracy Defense Coalition. Voting rights and civil rights organizations were raising alarms. A group of former elected officials was researching emergency powers they feared Trump might exploit. Just feeding into their own fear cycle, basically. So this all happened behind the scene, basically September to November before the election. And I remember the Democrats had they sent out campaigns with trucks to get people to vote and sign up, and those things were unconstitutional, man. It turned out that once you said it out loud, people agreed, Podhorser said, and it started building momentum. He spent months pondering scenarios and talking to experts. It wasn't hard to find liberals who saw Trump as a dangerous dictator. Oh, I guess so, huh? But Podhorser was careful to steer clear of hysteria. Oh, good for him. What he wanted to know was not how American democracy was dying, but how it might be kept alive. The chief difference between the U.S. and countries that lost their grip on democracy, he concluded, was that America's decentralized election system couldn't be rigged in one fell swoop. That presented an opportunity to shore it up. Right, so they have to do it slowly. I see. On March 3rd, the Alliance, he drafted a 3-page confidential memo titled Threats to the 2020 Election. Trump has made it clear that this will not be a fair election and that he will reject anything but his own re-election as fake and rigged. So he doesn't think Trump's going to fake it. He thinks Trump's going to say it's faked after he lost. Right. On November 3rd, should the media report otherwise, he will use the right-wing information system, like Fox News, to establish his narrative and incite his supporters to protest. The memo laid out 4 categories of challenges: attack on voters, attack on election administration, attack on Trump's political opponents, and efforts to reverse the results of the election. Then COVID-19, the coup erupted. At the height of the primary election season, normal methods of voting were no longer safe for voters or the mostly elderly volunteers. Okay, yeah. Chaos ensues. Ohio shut down in-person voting, which was horrible. A poll worker shortage in Milwaukee. Wow. Oh, that was chaos. Yeah. COVID really messed things up for everybody. Suddenly, the potential for a November meltdown was obvious. In his apartment in the DC suburbs, he began working from his laptop at his kitchen table, holding back-to-back Zoom meetings for hours a day with his networks of contacts across the progressive universe. Labor movement, institutional left, like Planned Parenthood, Greenpeace, all the big names, right? Things you'd expect. Resistance groups like Indivisible and Move On. I haven't heard of those, actually. Progressive data geeks and strategists, representatives of donors and foundations, state-level grassroots organizers, racial justice activists, and others. You got everybody. In April, he began hosting a weekly 2.5-hour Zoom session. Was structured around a series of rapid-fire 5-minute presentations on everything from which ads were working to messaging to legal strategy. The invitation-only gathering soon attracted hundreds, creating a rare shared base of knowledge for the fractious progressive movement. So that's where they got their organization from. Nice. At the risk of talking trash about the left, there's not a lot of good information sharing. There's a lot of not invented here syndrome, where people won't consider a good idea if they didn't come up with it. The meetings became the galactic center for constellation of operative across the left who shared overlapping goals but didn't usually work in concert. The group had no name, no leaders, and no hierarchy, but it kept the disparate actors in sync. Pod played a critical behind-the-scenes role in keeping different pieces of the movement infrastructure in communication and well-aligned. So they really were all united by Orange Man Bad, it seems. Pod played a critical behind-the-scenes role in keeping different... we read that. You have the litigation space, the organizing space, the political people just focus on the win, and their strategies aren't always aligned. He allowed this ecosystem to work. Securing the vote. First task was overhauling America's bulky election infrastructure in the middle of a pandemic. What a great idea. For the thousands of local, mostly nonpartisan officials who administer elections, the most urgent need was money. They needed protective equipment like masks, gloves, and hand sanitizers. Makes sense. They needed to pay for postcards letting people know they could vote absentee, or in some states to mail ballots to every voter. They needed additional staff and scanners to process ballots. In March, activists appealed to Congress to steer COVID relief money to election admin. Led by the Leadership Conference and the Civil Human Rights, more than 150 organizations signed a letter to every member of Congress. Oh, hey, Studio Fortress. What's up? Yeah, have you read this shit? This is fucking crazy, man. The fucking, the secret history of the shadow campaign. right. So it's in this article. So this is what I'm referencing. Activists reoriented to protect the result protest towards a weekend of celebration. Declare and fortify our win. So, what is it? Activists from the Protect the Result protest basically said that they need to fortify the win, right? I think there's another reference to fortify. That's the only one. But it's basically they were saying that like they work behind the scenes to fortify the win and fortify the democracy so that the correct result happen on November 3rd, right? Which is clearly like double speak to mean that we don't want Trump to win, right? The right result is Trump losing. It's just crazy that they just write it. Like, people were getting banned left and right like a month ago, or even now, for saying that the elections were dubious, and now this is a title like The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign that saved the 2020 election. Well, like, after November 3rd, the powers that be, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, if you said or mentioned, I won't say it because I'm on YouTube right now, but if you mentioned that there was anything untowards in the election, that there was election meddling, which I disavow, then you potentially had your video shadow banned, removed, deleted. Basically, you weren't allowed to say it. Same thing on Twitter. If you posted that the elections were dubious, it was the Democrats stole it or whatever, usually it was taken down. Tons of people got their... Well, like, that's the thing, like, why are you banning people if it's lies? Like, let the people... The election was perfectly fair. Man, the things that happened in Michigan, man, like... Let's see, Michigan... There was like... But why would you ban lies, though? That's the thing. Like, let them speak their truth. If they're lies, like, okay, it's a lie, people will know. Like, you can't control what's truth or lie because it becomes Twitter's decision. And then eventually, but like, everything is eventually going to come back to ban everybody. If you start banning lies, eventually you start banning things that are true because you have a change of opinion. Like, the people at the top have a certain opinion, the people that do the banning, that decide what to ban, they have their own truth. Well, how do you know that it's a lie? Like, who decides, right? And you can say, like, science, facts. Okay, well, like, you can dig into, like, how isn't it an opinion? I disagree with you. Here, I disagree with you. But yeah, there was poll watchers that weren't allowed to look at the polls, and that was really suspicious for me, and just not good faith, honestly. Where was I? But I mean, from your perspective, this is, I don't know how you would take this, but this is the Times explaining there was a secret history of a shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. So they're saying there's people that work behind the scenes. Multiple bodies were involved to watch the results. They didn't say there was an issue with the election. So to say otherwise is a lie. Who's they, though? Like, that's the thing. Like, multiple bodies were involved. Well, yes, there were. I think it was 2 people from the GOP and the Democrats that were supposed to watch. 2 people from the parties involved, basically. And as far as I know, the Michigan poll watchers were not allowed to watch. Like, they had to be, I think, 50 feet away. The judge did rule in the favor that, like, nothing untowards happened, but he's ruling, if you look, I don't remember the name of the
the judge. Yeah, every state is different. It's very. You can't generalize. I was talking about Michigan specifically, but there's so many different states. Anyway, let me get back into my thing. Where the fuck? What this freaking wall of text? No, I don't. Well, come on. Like, there's some dissent, but no majority dissent in any state. So all the states basically certified the results as of now. I think I was here. No. Ah, there we go. That's where I was. The Alliance. Yes. Matt Brainerd from the Election Integrity Project gathered some evidence. Well, wait. Evidence that it was rigged? It was never shown in court as far as I was concerned because the court never accepted the evidence in the cases where the case was brought. Most of the cases, as far as I know, were dismissed before arriving in front of a judge, per se, in the court. They were dismissed before even got to that point. But yeah, this guy has documented not, well, I don't know if it's election fraud, but basically he's documented lists of people that have been registered as voting in 2 different states. And when they were called, he made call center and he's called these people, Matt Brainerd, and which cases were brought, which had evidence. You want to get in the weeds, like, well, my podcast is about this one. Like, I think I made a video about it. Let me see. Let me see if I can actually find the thing. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, God, let me see. It was Michigan. No. Is it this one? Court rejects claims of fraud. Trump campaign. Alleging a lack of access for Republican poll. Yeah, it's this one. In Detroit and elsewhere, as well as unlawful denial of access to video recording of an absentee ballot. Basically, it's saying my watchers weren't trying to find. Yeah, what evidence? So let's see. A challenger describe its mission. No. So here, like, that's what I mean. Like, the case was brought, but it was rejected. So it was not heard. They decided not to hear it. So as far as I'm concerned, no evidence of election fraud ever made it in front of a judge. Yeah. It's an interesting case. Let me see if I can. Well, so that's the thing with the lawsuits is that let me actually get to the right one. What the court said. So Trump filed a lawsuit alleging a lack of access for the poll watchers in Detroit. The campaign requested a pause in counting while the case was heard. The request for the preliminary injunction was rejected by the court claims. Rejected 2-1 by Michigan Court of Appeals. and then rejected by the Supreme Court. The case now faces dismissal in the Michigan Court of Appeal. And if I remember, did they bring this to the Supreme Court? I think the Supreme Court refused to hear it also. I'm pretty sure. What the court said, the legislative directive that requires plaintiff to pursue its fraud allegation by way of a recount of the ballot cast in Wayne County. Because the plaintiff failed to follow the clear law in Michigan relative to such matters, their action is moot. So the 3 courts looked at it and rejected it. Sounds like thorough shutdown to me. Well, you would say that, but people can disagree with the judges also. Like the reason it was rejected, they said, was you need to do a recount instead of bringing it to basically to us. You need to recount. Well, see, the problem that people find is that the court aren't listening to the proof. See, the court's saying you need to do a recount, but the issue is the observers aren't allowed to be close, so the recount wouldn't change anything if the observer still isn't allowed to be there, which is why I think it made its way up to the Supreme Court and was ultimately dismissed. Still, that's where people get a big hang up on the case, I believe. The court finds that it is mere speculation by plaintiff that hundreds of thousands of ballots have in fact been changed and presumably falsified. So they find that it's mere speculation, but I don't think they looked at evidence. No, I don't want to recount. Now, what I want doesn't matter. Like what I would have liked is the evidence to reach a courtroom. It didn't, right? Like legally, as far as we're concerned, the elections are clear, dry, and done and clean. It's just, there's a lot of weird stuff that happened, man. You can play semantic games, but like, there's let's see. Let me find you the video.
At about 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going to roll this back and show it to you. There you go.
Jesus Christ, what is this quality? My Lord. How is this? Oh, there you go.
At about 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going to roll this back and show it to you. There you go. So now they're going to start pulling these ballots out from under this table. This table, the black one, was placed there by the lady with the blonde braids at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning. So she put that table there. So the same person who's staying behind now, the same person who cleared the place out under the pretense that we're going to stop counting, is the person who put the table there at 8:22 in the morning. Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table.
Okay, come on, speak.
Out. So what are these ballots doing there, separate from all the other ballots?
So this table.
And why are they only counting them whenever the place is cleared out with no witnesses? Is the question. So these machines can process about 3,000 ballots an hour. You have multiple machines there, and they're there for 2 hours. So you do the math. How many ballots went through those machines in those 2 hours when there was no one?
Right, so that video is a video, if I remember right, in Georgia, and I can find an article if you want, in Georgia. Well, that's the thing, like, what happened here is that they... Oh, what's up, DFKGF? Oh, is that... Does everybody... I don't even know chat emojis. Does everybody have access to those? But, so this video is taken, I believe... Is there a timestamp? 2 a.m.? Is that a... This is very late in... Oh, there we go. This is 11 o'clock. So the counting stopped at 10. They sent the observers home. And this video is, well, in the building. And it's them counting votes without any observer of either side. And what she's saying is that they just take out this suitcase out of this table.
Back and show it to you. There you go. So now they're going to start pulling these ballots out from under this table. This table, the black one, was placed there by the...
I think, man, were you here when I played Doom? I think so. How do I know this woman is correct? I don't know that she's correct. I would like this to go to court, but the case is being dismissed before they get to court. Because I don't remember. Shit. Same case as me, my man. I don't remember. Yeah, watching a video is actually more interesting than reading this article, but oh man, it's so interesting how everything worked. Let's see, the align. I was going based off when you read my DFKGF. Is it like just kind of look like you just like spam your keyboard a little bit? Yeah. Yeah, I think Trump's lawyers were playing it pretty safe. They're like, it's true. There is. See, that's the thing. It's not called evidence. What's it called? I think it's called. What is it? Evidence or proof? Like it's not 100% sure, but it's like if you find a bloody knife, you know, it's evidence. It's not 100% proof, but it's evidence. So like the evidence they have evidence of some voter fraud. There's Matt Brainer's election integrity project, and then there's these videos. There's some, but there's not. Yes, bloody ballot. But there's not like. I just want the evidence to get into the courtroom and judges to listen to them, but they're dismissing the cases on spurious claims without hearing them in detail, and that's what was frustrating. I'm not saying that the elections were rigged. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they were weird, and this video is weird, and it's weird.
The lady with the blonde braids.
The lady with the blonde braids. She's a weirdo. Ballots from under tables. Anyway, it's enough of that. Close. Yes, close that. Close that, and this one. Weird. So securing the vote. Let's see. In March, private philanthropy stepped into the breach. An assortment of foundations contributed tens of millions in election admin funding. The Chan Zuckerberg Initiative chipped in $300 million. I didn't realize Mark is studio anti-Trump. Wait, what do you mean studio? I mean, I'm Canadian, right? What you're describing is a cross USA court. Is a cross USA court plus cross USA election fraud. Oh. So you're saying I'm saying they're working in concert. Is that what I'm saying? It's kind of semi-implied. So I don't think that the court, well, man, like, let's read this article, because that's exactly what this is talking about. That's why this is fucking interesting, right? There's all these groups working together behind the scene in a shadow campaign to save the election, right? Like, don't you find it just... I'm sure he does, man. Chan Zuckerberg chipped in $300 million. It was failure at federal level that 2,500 local election officials were forced to apply for philanthropic grants to fill their needs. That's kind of fucked up, to be honest. So local election officials didn't have enough money to work? Is that... Alright, well, I mean, if Mark Zuckerberg helped him out, I mean, good for him. Former Denver election officials who heads nonpartisan National Vote at Home Institute. So her organization became a clearinghouse for a nation struggling to adapt. The institute gave secretaries of state from both parties technical advice on everything from which vendors to use and how to locate drop boxes. They're just saying they honestly, like, Trump is not that bad. It's just people are making him out to be like Satan. Like, yeah, there's stuff I disagree with. There's stuff I agree with him. Like like most politicians I disagree entirely. But it's just like, he's not that bad. Like, compared to Hillary Clinton, come on, man. Like Joe Biden would say. Like, that's the choice people had 4 years ago. And it was a hard tough. It's turd sandwich or a shit soup. Is cheating on your wife with a prostitute while she is pregnant bad? Like, honestly, I'm pretty sure that people didn't care about that. Like, is it bad? Yeah, I'd say that's bad. I also don't think people, like, man, the number of people that it is bad, but like, I'm just saying that, like, Hillary Clinton doesn't have a lot of critics for a reason, right? I'm saying that she wanted a no-fly zone in Syria while Russia was flying planes. You know, that's the choice. Is walking on 14-year-olds getting changed so you can see them nude bad? It is bad. Is bombing people with drones bad? Yes. You know, Obama did that a lot. And then freaking Trump continued it. And then Biden's continuing it. They're all crooked. Like, yes, Trump did that. I know he did. I'm not infatuated with Trump. Like, I don't like him that much. I like him. I think that he's done good for the country. I think that he was... Well, I mean, like, Biden's president right now, like, he's done a lot of stuff that is to be criticized for because he's president, and people were criticizing Trump because he was president. People didn't criticize Trump before he became president. Like, Let me get back into this. I get easily distracted with all the fucking weed I smoke, I swear to God. What's it? The Institute work helped 37 states and D.C. bolster mail voting. That's another thing. Like, the Democrats really pushed, and this was a smart strategy from the Democrats. A smart strategic move is they really pushed mail-in voting, which combined with COVID, people were way more likely to do. And that who votes more in mail-in voting? It's Democrats. So that was just a strategic move that I think was smart. When they saw COVID coming, they went real hard for mail-in voting, and yeah, that's just political strategy. Yeah, Trump did campaign against people voting by mail. I mean, voting by mail is less secured, but there's COVID going on, so it's the safety versus the Democrats campaign hard to have people vote by mail, man. Part of the challenge was logistical. Each state has different rules for when and how ballots should be requested and returned. That is so true. The Voter Participation Center, which in a normal year would have deployed canvassers door to door, instead had focus groups. to find out what would get people to vote by mail. They really went all out. In August and September, it sent ballot applications to 15 million people in key states, 4.6 million of whom returned them. Damn, that's a huge effort. In mailing and digital ads, the group urged people not to wait for election day. All the work we've done for 17 years was built for this moment of bringing democracy to people's doorsteps. The efforts had to overcome heightened skepticism in some communities. Many black voters preferred to exercise their franchise in person or didn't trust the mail. Really? I wonder why. National civil rights groups work with local organizations to get the word out that this was the best way to ensure one's vote was counted. That's a lie! Vote by mail is less secure. Literally, just like somebody can just take it. Like in Philadelphia, for example, advocates distributed voting safety kits containing mass hand sanitizer and informational brochures. Damn, that's fancy. We had to get the message out that this is safe, reliable, and you can trust it. Says Hannah Fried of All Voting is Local. At the same time, Democratic lawyers battle a historic tide of pre-election litigation. And that's what Fortress was mentioning. The pandemic intensified the party's usual tangling in the courts, but the lawyers noticed something else as well. Litigation brought by the Trump campaign of a piece with the broader campaign to sow doubts about mail voting was making novel claims and using theories no court has ever accepted, says Wendy Weiser, a voting rights expert at the Brennan Center for Justice, New York, EU. They read more like lawsuits designed to send a message rather than achieve a legal outcome. I wonder if that was actually the case. He didn't intend to win. Just send a message? That's kind of weird. In the end, nearly half the electorate cast ballots by mail in 2020. Practically a revolution in how people vote. God damn, that's insane. About a quarter voted early in person. Only a quarter of voters cast their ballots the traditional way, in person on election day. Man, I wonder how many people will vote by mail after the coup is over. The disinformation defense. Ah, yes. How long is this goddamn thing? Yeah, this is very interesting, but I might have to cut this in two. Oh, fuck, I lost my... There. I showed you like some evidence. Like I showed you. There's video. There's the test. Oh man, I understand if I want to make any claims, I'm gonna have to show it to you. But like you can like have you looked for them? To be honest, most of it has been banned. Like it was really hard to get a hold of it if you weren't in the kind of the right wing social circle, because the links were getting like yeeted left and right. Like what else concrete could I show you besides the video of the Georgia like ballots being taken out? Yeah, like the court never heard the evidence. They dismissed it before hearing it. So, I mean, we can agree that okay, the judges found that it was not good evidence, but that leaves 75. Well, like, okay, you're expecting me to show you of a video of somebody taking a ballot saying, I'm committing voter fraud, and then putting it on the table. Like, I can't. Like, what do you want, like, everything on a golden platter? Like, there's evidence. Like, I'm not saying there's a ton. There just is. It is a fact that there's evidence. I showed you. I don't understand. Like, evidence is not 100% proof. It's just a tidbit, a part of the story. I should look here. Yes, that is evidence. That's actually evidence. Yes, but dude. Okay. Let's see. Disinformation defense. It's the context, right? Bad actors spreading false info is nothing new. Decades campaigns grapple with everything from anonymous calls claiming the election has been rescheduled to flyers spreading nasty smears about yes. But Trump's lies and conspiracy theories, the viral force of social media, and the involvement of foreign meddlers made disinformation a broader, deeper threat to the 2020 vote. Yeah, like I'm not saying that this would have definitely changed the fact that Trump lost. Trump may have very well been crushed still. It's just like something weird happened, and it'd be good for the election of like for the election security in general that this be investigated. It's the fucking video I showed you. Laura Quinn, a veteran progressive operative who co-founded Catalyst, began studying this problem a few years ago. She piloted a nameless secret project, which she never before publicly discussed, that tracked disinformation online and tried to figure out how to combat it. One component was tracking dangerous lies that might otherwise spread unnoticed. Researchers then provided info to campaigners or the media to track down the sources and expose them? What the hell? Laura Quinn piloted a nameless secret project to track down sources and expose them. What the that's not good, man. Like, I understand you don't like that somebody's putting out disinfo, but like, first you ban the person, and then you're gonna dox them? That's just gonna create more chaos in society. Leave them be. Like, just Twitter already puts labels under people's tweets, and YouTube does that. Like, this is misinformation. That's already freaking Orwellian. Let people decide. Fake news has always been a thing. Just who's Laura Quinn? I remember the name Quinn somewhere. Anyways, most important takeaway was engaging with toxic content only made it worse. When you get attacked, the instant is to push back, to call it out, say this isn't true. But the more engagement something gets, the more the platform boosts it. The algorithm reads that as oh, this is popular, people want more of it. Very true, that's the Streisand effect. So the solution was to pressure platforms to enforce their rules, both by removing the rules. By that, she means the terms of service of freaking of like Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter, which are designed to be so vague that they can basically be anything at any time. Right. So pressure them to remove content or accounts that spreads disinfo, and by more aggressively policing it in the first place. I mean, I agreed. Police, like, well, not disinfo, but police, like, there's such garbage on Twitter, man. Like, police the extremists, people that call out for violence. That should be the first thing. Alright, so spreading the word. Beyond bad info, beyond battling bad info, there was a need to explain a rapidly changing election process. It was crucial for voters to understand that despite what Trump was saying, mail-in votes weren't susceptible to fraud and that it would be normal if some states weren't finished counting votes on election night. Why? They don't explain why it would be normal. Dick Gephardt? The Democratic former House leader turned high-powered lobbyist spearheaded one coalition. We wanted to get a really bipartisan group of former elected officials, cabinet secretaries, military leaders, and so on, aimed mainly at messaging to the public, but also speaking to local officials, the secretaries of state, attorney generals, and governors who would be in the eye of the storm, to let them know we wanted to help, says Gephardt, who worked his contacts in the private sector to put 20 million behind the effort. Right. He's a lobbyist, which I don't like. Spearheaded one coalition. Huh. So they're just pushing for mail-in vote, which, like... it's not safer, but... Because, which countries use mail-in votes? I'm pretty sure that mail-in votes, more than half have compulsory voter registration. God damn, I didn't know that. That's crazy. Vast majority of countries and territories have minimum voting age of 18. Before the coronavirus outbreak, about a quarter of the countries had used postal ballots. Yeah, but like, are they actually using it? Paper ballot, yeah, okay. 40 used postal ballot in their most recent. I guess that no, that's not the question I was wanting. I wanted to know how much percent, but that's gonna take too long to research. Because they're quick. There's not a nice table, so fuck that. Yo, see ya, Fortress. Man, like the oh, Fortress. I don't know what he wanted, man. Like, I literally showed him a video that was used in court. The video was used. Yes, we get a shiny... Well, I'm Canadian, but they get a shiny new president with... Oh my god. This is gonna, like... This is not gonna last, man. How old is he? He's like fucking 80 million years old. It's ridiculous. It's gonna be Kamala Harris, man. It's gonna be Kamala Harris. New shiny old president. Shine his head so it sparkles in the sun when he takes naps. We thought we should bring some bipartisan element of unity around what constituted a free, fair election. 22 Democrats and 22 Republicans on the National Council on Election Integrity met on Zoom at least once a week. They ran ads, made statements. It's a potential we had rabid Trump supporters who agreed to serve on the council based on the idea that this is honest? Wait, what? We had rabid Trump supporters who agreed to serve on the council based on the idea that this is honest. Womp says this is going to be just as important, he told them, to convince the liberals when Trump wins. What? This is going to be just... Whichever way it cuts, we're going to stick together. Why is he saying that rabid... Man, it's so fucking complicated what's going on. Like, there's literally every fucking state is different. And granted, there's only 4 states. I think it was Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona, I think, that were in play. They had only like 10,000 vote difference. That was where Trump was focusing his effort. But Like the evidence that was presented was just rejected without actually being heard. And Studio was saying, well, where's the evidence? And I'm saying, well, like, there it is. That's the video. But the judge didn't actually look at it, I don't think. He just dismissed it. So I'm like, it's like, where's the evidence? Well, there it was. I'm like, that's not evidence. Well, that's semantic. And then he's saying, don't play semantic games. Now I'm like, let me jump off this tall bridge. Yeah, it's very weird the way they framed them. He's framing this as if it wasn't honest. The Voting Rights Lab and Into Action created state-specific memes and graphics spread by... Really? They made memes? What? I want an example. Vote by mail meme? No, that's not what they did. What the they made memes. That's amazing. Alright. Even TikTok. Urging that every vote be counted. That was the phrase they used. Every vote must be counted. And the Republicans were going, well, I mean, every legal vote should be counted. And then Democrats were like, every vote should be counted. Okay, that's a different way to put it. Together, they were viewed more than 1 billion times. Protect Democracy's election task force issued reports and held media briefings with high-profile experts across the political spectrum, resulting in widespread coverage in potential election issues and fact-checking of Trump's false claims. So they were basically constantly fact-checking everything Trump was saying, which is not new. A majority also believed that a prolonged count wasn't a sign of problem. We knew exactly what Trump was going to do. He was going to try to use the facts that Democrats voted by mail and Republicans voted in person to make it look like he was ahead. Claim victory, say the mail-in votes were fraudulent, and try to get them thrown out. Yeah, fair enough, Studio. I think Trump used the wrong language, but everything Trump did was constitutional. He got stopped by courts, right? He was stopped legally, so everything he was doing was legal. He's still saying he didn't lose, which, like, come on, dude, you're not even president anymore, like, but... Man, like, there's... same thing as, like, 2016, man. For 4 years, they cried. They decried the fact that, like, not my president, hashtag not my president. And, yeah. It's just sad now because it's tit for tat, right? What they did to Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think 2 days ago, they removed her from some committees, but... Like, what's going to happen after they remove her from... They're going to remove some freshman GOP congressmen from their committees, try to get as much out of this as they can. But in 222, when it flips and then the freaking Republicans take the House again, because I'm pretty sure they will. They might take the Senate. We'll see. They're going to do the same thing to the Democrats. The GOP are going to... They try to freaking dunk on the Democrats, and it's just going to escalate things. And it's just bad. I'm not rooting for either side. It's just bad. I just want things to, like, fucking calm down. Man, I hope not. I really hope not. The Alliance took a common set of themes from the research Shankar Osorio presented at his Zoom calls. Studies have shown that when people don't think their vote will count or fear casting it will be a hassle, they're far less likely to participate. True. What we saw in pre-election research was that anything that reaffirmed Trump's power or cast him as an authoritarian diminished people's desire to vote. Ooh. But it was the media that kept saying Trump was a N-word and a
an authoritarian. Like, they're saying they were suppressing people's desire to vote, basically, indirectly. Ugh, these people. Podhorzer, meanwhile, was warning everybody he knew that polls were underestimating Trump's support, as they do. The data he shared with media organization who would be calling the election was tremendously useful to understand what was happening as the votes rolled in. Most analysts had recognized there would be a blue shift in key battlegrounds, the surge of votes breaking towards Democrats driven by tallies of mail-in votes, but they hadn't comprehended how much better Trump was likely to do on election day. I think Studio had what is it called? He had not a confirmation bias, but he refused to see any evidence. I literally showed him something that was used in the court system, and he said it wasn't evidence. I can't do anything else. Man, I honestly, it's just more comments and traffic for me, so it's fine if he shouts at me, but I just wish we could have like engaged more seriously than I'm saying one thing and he's saying it's not true, and I'm like, well, okay, then you just don't believe what I say. I mean, that's fine. It's just I can't do anything else now. But a wall in our discussion. People power. The racial justice uprising sparked by okay, wait. How much longer is this goddamn thing? Whew. My throat is literally starting to be tired. I did a book review before this. It was my 50. There it is. I'll do one more half paragraph. The racial justice uprising sparked by George Floyd was not primarily a political movement. The organizers who helped lead it wanted to harness its momentum for the election without allowing it to be co-opted by politicians. Many of those organizers were part of Podhorzer's network. What? From the activists in battleground states who partnered with the Democracy Defense Coalition to organization with leading roles in the movement of Black Lives. What? So, like-minded. This is an article by the Time, The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign that saved the 2020 election. It was posted about 5 days ago, and it's just a really interesting look at what happened before the 2020 U.S. election. Like a couple months before, all the powers that be, mainstream media, was a lot of prominent political analysts and activists behind the scene, even big business CEOs just got together and fortified and saved democracy by executing a shadow campaign that nobody knew about. But yeah, it's really interesting, actually. I was just reading the part here about, where is it? So when George Floyd happened, the organizers wanted to use it as a political movement. That's what they wanted. They wanted to lead it to harness the momentum for the election without allowing it to be co-opted by politicians. But they were part of this guy's network. And they also partnered with Democracy Defense Coalition, because Podhorzer's network consists of left-wing people. They're against Trump. So I mean, you're not being co-opted, but you're certainly working in tandem, in parallel, if nothing else. From the activists in battleground states who partnered with Democracy Defense to organizations with leading roles in the movement for Black Lives. Should Black Lives be political? Yeah, I suppose so. It's just you don't want to be co-opted, but then you work with the same organization, with the same people that work with Democrats. Best way to ensure people's voice were heard, they decided, was to protect the ability to vote. We started thinking about a program that would complement the traditional election protection area, but also didn't rely on calling the police. What? We started thinking about a program that would complement the traditional election protection. Right, so you want to increase protection without relying on police. Okay. Says this, the Working Families Party's National Organizing Director. They created a force who, unlike traditional poll watchers, were trained in de-escalation techniques. Wow, they were expecting violence? During early voting and on election day, they surrounded lines of voters in urban areas with a joy to the polls effort that turned the act of casting a ballot into a street party. Black organizers also recruited thousands of poll workers to ensure polling places would stay open in their communities. Now, it's good to encourage people to vote. Let's see. They surrounded lines of voters in urban with joy to the polls. I just remember, I wonder if I can bring it up. This, oh God, what was it? They sent out a truck into poorer communities and they were giving cash rewards for votes. For voting. Wait, no, it wasn't cash, it was gift cards. Let me try a gift card reward for voting 2020 US election. What was the state? Oh, that was it. I think it's MSN got it. Pro-Biden effort offering, 25 to 500. Pro-Biden effort offered Native Americans Visa gift cards and jewelry to vote. Key Native American leaders working with the Biden campaign offered tribal members and associates Visa gift cards, jewelry, and other swag to vote in presidential election, according to several videos being used by the Trump's campaign to effort to challenge Nevada's vote. It was in Nevada. Right. We'll get a... Like, this is the kind of... oh, God, this girl. It's the kind of evidence that, like, I was, like, listening to anyway. So I think this is kind of what was happening. The summer uprising has shown that people power could have a massive impact. Activists began preparing to reprise the demonstration if Trump tried to steal the election. Americans plan widespread protests if Trump interferes with the election. That's a threat, Reuters reported in October. One of many such stories. More than 100... This is a threat because there have been riots in, like, was it Baltimore and Portland for, like, months now? They don't want those to continue. So they're going to vote Biden. More than 150 liberal groups... Well, I shouldn't say it's a threat. It could be perceived as a threat. More than 150 liberal groups, from the Women's March to the Sierra Club to Color of Change, from Democrats.com, oh my God, joined the Protect the Results Coalition. So all nice and upholding people, value upholding people. The group's now defunct website had a map listing 400 planned post-election demonstration to be activated via text messages as soon as November 4th. To stop the coup they feared, the left was ready to flood the streets. Man, talk about paranoia. About a week... strange bedfellows. About a week before the election day, pot owners received an unexpected message from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The AFL-CIO, basically the unions, and the Chamber have a long history of antagonism, though neither organization is explicitly partisan. Kind of. The influential business lobby has poured hundreds of millions of dollars into Republican campaigns, just as the nation's unions funnel hundreds of millions to Democrats. On one side is labor, on the other side, management, locked in an eternal struggle for power and resources. Blessed be the U.S. government. But behind the scenes, the business community was engaged in its own anxious discussion about how the election and its aftermath might unfold. The summer, because business was booming during the time. The summer's racial justice protest had sent a signal. I mean, it was booming in 2019. Then the racial justice protest erupted.
With tensions running high, there was a lot of concern about unrest around the election or a breakdown in our normal way we handle contentious elections, says Neil Bradley. And rightly so. The elections, if it was just a little bit more contentious, which I understand the elections were already really contentious, it would have been an absolute disaster. It would have been like probably civil war. Because if people didn't know on January 20th who was president, then yeah. These worries had led to the chamber to release a pre-election statement with the Business Roundtable, Washington-based CEO group, as well as associations of manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers, calling for patience and confidence as votes were counted. We call on the media, the candidates, and the American people to exercise patience with the process and trust in our system, even if it requires more time than usual, the group added. Although we may not always agree on the desired outcome up and down the ballot, we are united in our call for the American democratic process to proceed without violence, intimidation, or any other tactic that would make us weaker as a nation. So they're all aligned against Trump, basically. The unions, the freaking Department of Defense. Because Trump is saying, and maybe you could say Trump aligned himself against them, but Trump was saying that vote by mail was a bad idea. They were saying vote by mail is a good idea. Election night. Oh man, I don't think I have it in me to finish. I'm getting a bit tired. Let's see. I shall leave it for the night. I want to talk about Quebec and what happened here. We're still in freaking lockdowns, man. It's horrible. Ugh. Anyway, we'll leave it for now. I'll come back later because my throat's starting to kill me. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye.